Child labor violations in the U.S. have soared in recent months, with some businesses plugging staffing gaps by illegally recruiting teenagers. It's not just employers desperate to fill jobs driving the number of unlawfully employed minors up. It's also the rise in unaccompanied children crossing the border illegally and a weakening of child labor laws by individual states. Whatever the forces at play, it's children who are paying the price, as Benji Hyer reports.
This is Cole Bostwick. He was barely 18 when he was killed in a logging accident 9 years ago.
It destroyed our family. It really did.
His mum, Wendy, has been fighting a bill which would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to operate dangerous logging equipment under parental supervision. Cole died instantly, crushed by a carriage, with his dad, also a logger, watching on just meters away. Nearly a decade on, dozens of teenagers die on the job annually. Yet in the past 2 years, at least 14 states have either repealed or proposed rolling back the very protections designed to limit kids' exposure to harm, such as the need for 14 to 15-year-olds in Arkansas to have work permits, or in Iowa, 16-year-olds can work in excavation, demolition, and operate power-driven machinery. Several business lobby groups are pushing lawmakers to make the state laws more lenient still, arguing it could empower people to earn money at a younger age. This would make it harder, though, to check for violations. They've increased 283% since 2015.
What the state has done is sent a very confusing message to employers, and the state is also saying, if you cross the line and violate those federal protections, here at the state level, we're certainly not going to do anything about it. We're taking ourselves out of the enforcement role because we've weakened our standards, and we're going to leave it up to the underfunded, understaffed, federal Department of Labor to try to enforce those provisions on its own. It's weakening the enforcement system even further when states roll back their state level standards.
Officials here are trying to take up the slack and address these breaches. But it's a mammoth task. This department alone has more than 600 child labour investigations open and has issued millions of dollars in fines.
One investigation found 10-year-olds working at McDonald's in Kentucky, sometimes until 2 a.m, and hundreds of teens illegally employed in hazardous meatpacking plants and slaughterhouses across 8 states. Many of these children are not Americans choosing to work. Instead, undocumented immigrants who've unlawfully crossed over the US-Mexico border. And employers, desperate to fill jobs following the pandemic, seem content turning a blind eye to their well-being when profits are at stake. Experts fear there's no easy fix.
You have to look at root causes of the vulnerabilities that those workers are experiencing, what's making them vulnerable to that type of abuse, to think about interventions. And so it's really going to deeper policy approaches, whether that's foreign policy, immigration policy, those sort of deeper issues that seem in some ways removed from the issue of child labor, but are actually directly related to it.
That he didn't have enough experience.
That will take time. From those who've suffered loss, the message is clear and urgent.
I see sweatshops in our future. And it disgusts me. It really does. If anything is important to us, it's got to be our future. It's got to be our kids.
Benji Hyer, CNA, Washington, D.C.